So it's time for some more MK11 Aftermath hype. Of course, my name's Dynasty, and we got a bunch to discuss today. For starters, Spawn's friendship just got revealed about an hour ago, and it's really good. It's a good one. Also, we got a look at a few more variants of the Retrocade stage. Then for those pre-ordering to get the Eternal Skin Pack skins, the official Mortal Kombat Instagram shared all the different color options these classic skins are going to have. We also got a look at the release date times for the DLC, so you have an idea when you can actually install the DLC if you already purchased it. And lastly, the man himself, Ed Boon, shared an interview with the guys over at Game Informer, where they discuss and answer a bunch of questions in regards to this Aftermath expansion. For instance, he was asked about the future of Mortal Kombat 11, if we'll see a Combat Pack 2, mentions why they selected a character like Fujin versus Mileena, Rain, etc. Definitely go check out the article, it'll be linked down below, but I'll be covering just the highlights I think that we gotta discuss. And with that said, without further ado, let's break this stuff down, have some fun. Let's get into it. So first things first, let's share with you Spawn's friendship in MK11. Here it is. Our boy Spawn using his cape as a hammock and reading a book titled Hellish Desires. The music in the background, that set the tone for me. I gotta say, Spawn, you're quite the ladies' man. But yes, that was amazing. If you guys want, you can read the full article where this is from down below from Esquire.com. They talk about friendships and Aftermath in general. So good read, go check it out, linked down below. Next, though, we got some more classic stages that are gonna be parts of the Retrocade arena. Here we got the subway. The subway returns. It's looking better than ever. We got the living forest as well, and I was so relieved because this is probably my favorite Mortal Kombat stage of all time. I just always had a thing for the living forest, and it's back. So your boy is super happy, super stoked. And lastly, Portal stage. It's making a comeback. So this Retrocade arena, I think, is living up to expectations I had. I'm so happy to see these classic stages return. As much as I wish they could have got a completely new design like the Deadpool or like a reiteration of it, it's still cool to have this like 8-bit feel, this classic feel. I really do like it a lot, so hopefully you guys do too. Now, for those pre-ordering getting the Eternal Skin Pack, the Deception Sub-Zero, the MK9 Scorpion, and the Classic Frost, we got the colors, the shaders. Maybe I'm just overhyped here, but I like every variant we have of these skins. I'm just excited, man. It's cool to see the classic skins return, plus having several different color schemes. Like, that's better than I would have initially expected before the game came out. So it's just cool to not only get, like, Shredder Sub-Zero, but several different versions of Shredder Sub-Zero. So again, I am just so excited for all this new content they're dropping on us, like, out of nowhere. This wasn't even a thing like 2-3 weeks ago, and now it's like, oh, by the way, content overload. But yes, that is every color option dropping with this skin pack. Now, got for you guys the global release map just shared not too long ago. This will narrow down what time you can expect to be able to install the DLC once you do have it purchased. And if you're just confused, just look for your time zone and do the math more or less. For instance, like Central Time's not listed for us here, but that should be dropping at 10 a.m. So, you know, do the math, try to figure it out. It's not too complicated, I hope. So yes, global release map, hopefully giving you guys a clarification on when you can expect to download and install the DLC. Finally, the last topic of the video, Ed Boon's interview with the good guys over at GameInformer.com, where they discuss a bunch about Aftermath. And again, I highly suggest reading the full article because I'm not covering everything, and it's such a good read. Link down below. But it says here, MK11 Aftermath, Mortal Kombat co-creator Ed Boon talks Aftermath story, RoboCop, Next Gen, and UFC's Fight Island. Again, we'll be focusing on just Aftermath, DLC, you know, Mortal Kombat stuff. But again, go read the full thing. So they open with this right here. It says, why did you decide that an expansion was the right route for MK11 instead of waiting to continue the story by way of a sequel like we've seen in the past? Boon replies by saying, at the end of the day, when we finished Mortal Kombat 11, we kind of left it like a, hey, the story's over kind of thing. Our past few games we've always released what some people refer to as a Game of the Year edition that repackaged everything throughout the year in one package. With Mortal Kombat XL, we tried doing something new where we added 4 more characters like Alien, Predator, and some MK characters, and that was huge for us. That was unexpected, like, oh wow, that was really, really big. So from that standpoint, our first reaction was, oh, let's one-up that, let's do the same thing, and then some. Boon goes on to say, story was the area that a lot of our fans love that part of Mortal Kombat. The story mode, the narrative, and all that stuff. So that was kind of like, oh, let's do that. Let's just hit really hard with a great addition, almost like an epilogue. Final conclusion to the story. And so our main thing was we really wanted to drop this crazy bomb of content on the player. As we had that discussion about the story, we saw there's more that we can tell for this. So we came up with a little bit of a Back to the Future 2 synopsis. You go back in time and you see the events of it, and then you're changing the course of history. It ended up very cool. So there you have it. That is the explanation behind why they decided, like, you know what? The story ended and everything, but we could do some more. Let's give back to those who want some story mode DLC. And honestly, they really did one-up Mortal Kombat XL, because as cool as it was just to get DLC characters, having a story added alongside that, featuring these DLC characters, that's dope. They go on to ask, will the callbacks be limited to Mortal Kombat 11 story, or will we see moments from other Mortal Kombat games as well? Boon's response to that is, it's mainly the MK11 stuff. There's other stuff that has happened that's referenced and has influence on it, but it's not like we go back to Deadly Alliance and see that. Now, for me, bittersweet, because I always wish, man, we could go back and see a bit of the 3D era, but apparently it's gonna be mainly focused on Mortal Kombat 11, so, bittersweet. You know, there's always Mortal Kombat 12, right? Game Informer goes on to say, can you give me a sense of the scope of the story? How does it compare to the base Mortal Kombat 11 story? Boon answers that by saying it's not as big. It's 5 very thick chapters. Traditionally, we'll have 4 fights in a chapter per character. This one, some have 6. They're much thicker chapters and longer. We're really trying to focus mainly on these new characters, Fujin and Shiva. RoboCop is not in the story, in case you're asking, but this kind of reveals their role in Mortal Kombat 11's overall story. So again, it's really cool to see these DLC characters having a spotlight, and just about a month ago, we didn't know what to expect for the future Mortal Kombat 11, and now we're getting DLC characters that are featured in a campaign, and we're getting more of a campaign, and we're going back in time and rebooting the initial campaign, kind of, sort of. So again, man, I'm so stoked for Aftermath. Now, they do talk about RoboCop in this next excerpt right here. They say, and obviously, having Kerry Tagawa back as Shang Tsung is awesome, but we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Peter Weller reprising his role as RoboCop in that same breath. I know he's not in story mode, but what was it like working with him? Boon goes on to say, a lot of us grew up watching 80s action movies, so there's something so cool about when he actually came to our studio. I was like, oh my god, RoboCop is in our studio. This is the coolest thing ever. Now, make it read to the bottom section where, I have it highlighted there. It says, we have these lists of people, and we've been talking about RoboCop since Mortal Kombat 9. We've kept him on that list for the longest time and finally checked it off. A list! There's a list of characters they have, and RoboCop was one of them since Mortal Kombat 9. That's insane. That's like 10 years in the making. They've been waiting on this. Here, it's like I was assuming that, well, Ash Williams kind of backed out of the deal, and they're like, RoboCop! But, apparently it's been something that they've really been planning on for a while, at least, and that, my friends, that is super cool. They go on to say, there are definite themes to your DLC guest characters. Mortal Kombat 9 was horror movies, Mortal Kombat X was sci-fi action, and now it seems like the theme with MK11 is 80s action. Are there any other guest characters you'd be interested in adding? Boon says, like I said, we literally have a list that we move people up and down on. Obviously, it's not just a matter of who do we want, and then boom, we get them. There's a ton of hoops you've got to jump through to make these things happen. But if you saw a really huge 80s or 90s movie, it's probably on our list. So there you have it. There is a literal list of guest characters they have, I guess, at the studio. They're constantly just like, let's put him here. Let's drop him. That's awesome. That's super cool to know that that's actually a thing. It kind of made me laugh a lot, honestly, when I first read this. Game Informer goes on to say, when you're working with these third-party licensors, how do you make sure you're not crossing any lines when they get their heads blown off, or you're collaborating to make sure their movesets are as authentic as possible? Boon goes on to say, well, the discussion of we don't want to see their head blown off never happens. Like, that's kind of a prereq. These are the things we're going to be doing to your character, and if they sign up on there, it's kind of like there's no limits. As far as what the character does in fighting, we send them concepts all the time. We send them write-ups, we send them literally the preliminary animation of what we motion captured and how it's going to feel and all that stuff. They have feedback they give us, and there's a lot of back and forth, especially with these high-profile, Terminator was a big one. RoboCop is a big one. Spawn was great because Todd McFarlane was just like, go crazy. So there was no, oh, we'll back off there. He was just like, just go crazy. I wanted to see this for so long, and he was just in celebration mode. You gotta love Todd McFarlane. He really just wanted to see Spawn as crazy as possible. Like, that's awesome. You're awesome, Todd McFarlane. Now, this next question is one I think all of us have, and I'm so glad Game Informer just directly asked them. They say, so I can't help but notice that earlier you mentioned a contentious word within the MK community. Mileena, is there a Kombat Pack 2 coming after Aftermath? Ed Boon laughs and says, I cannot confirm or deny anything that's after Aftermath. So, what did we expect? He's not going to say, oh yeah, it's coming. He's not going to say no. The door's open, at least, and let's just cross our fingers and be hopeful. But yeah, gotta love it, man. Gotta love Boon. They go on to say, on the topic of Mileena, was that just a total troll job to put her as a guest in a friendship? And Ed Boon says, no, the idea was just to be this kind of schoolgirl thing, and who else are we going to be doing that with Kitana? So that is what he's saying. He's saying that he's not trying to troll Mileena fans. I mean, he might be telling the truth. I'll let you guys be the judge. They also mention this right here. It says, outside of RoboCop, Aftermath also adds Fujin and Shiva. While you rightly point out that they have been both unsung in their roles in the MK stories, I think it's safe to say Fujin has been far less prominent. I think even back in Mortal Kombat 4, it wasn't actually confirmed that he is Raiden's brother, only implied. Why was it so important to add him in particular? Ed Boon replies by saying, I think over the years we have about 80 Mortal Kombat characters in some capacity. The reason we added Fujin was because he hadn't been seen in a game in so long. Quite frankly, I think a decent number of players will be like, who's Fujin? If we just did Mileena, Kitana, Jade, Scorpion, Sub-Zero, Rain, you know, all these characters, I think it would get stale after a while. We do need to give characters a rest every once in a while, then when they do return, it's a big deal, it's a novelty. And so we're kind of just spreading it. Fujin was one of the things that our designers were like, hey, I think we could do something really cool with this character with wind and running on the wind and doing stuff with his sword. When the designers say they can make something really unique with gameplay, that weighs a lot in terms of a decision of who to bring back. This entire paragraph right here is just super duper insightful, so shout out to Ed Boon for sharing this because it gives you an idea what they're thinking when they select characters like Fujin, why Mileena's not in the game, why Rain is not in the game, why, you feel me? It's a really interesting read, and it does make sense. They want characters to take a rest every once in a while. They want characters who have some unique gameplay opportunities. I mean, again, it makes sense. So there you have it from the man himself. Yeah, that's interesting. The last thing to discuss, though, they say, well, are there any plans to continue to keep the game alive following Aftermath? Boon says, yeah, at the highest level. Obviously, we want to support the game for as long as players are with us, so to speak. I certainly would love to continue exploring that, although in what capacity is a much bigger conversation, like whether it's additional characters or new features, new modes, whatever. So again, he wants to support this game continuously as long as we're still playing it, but we don't know how far this support goes. So time will tell. After this section, they start talking about like other stuff. And again, it's super interesting, but only focusing on Mortal Kombat today. But guys, that is all I got for y'all today. The link to this article will be linked down below. Jam-packed. Hopefully you enjoyed watching it. I'm super curious to hear your response to all this stuff, because it was a lot. We legit talked about the Retrocade stages, the Eternal Skin Pack color variants. We got Spawn's friendship, this Ed Boon interview, the time zone release times. It was jam-packed. So if you could, drop a like, of course, subscribe to some more MK content on the channel. Till next time, your host, Dynasty. You guys, please stay curious, stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one. Peace.
Dynasty for years now, GTA, MK, and Justice, I'm still down. Rapper meets gamer, I wonder how y'all feel now. That was just a setup, watch it get real now. Okay, so me and Sub-Zero was born in 92, and lyrically I inherited all his fighting moves. A lot of y'all still lost, don't have the slightest clue. The truth disappears in the smoke as if you